What happens when Skynet's war across time ends up smashing directly into a real war from history? Well, let's hop into the pages of Terminator issue number 2 and find out what happens together, shall we? So then, as we join the story proper, we're in Vietnam in the 70s. We're introduced to a soldier named Duggan who, unlike all of his other comrades, actually doesn't want to leave the country anytime soon. Mainly because it seems he's taken quite an interest in the local women, and should I mention he's also married back home? Yep, this is our POV character. Everyone, it's one of those stories. Of course, what none of these guys know, and what only we know as the reader with the benefit of historic hindsight, is that the Vietnam War will be ending any day now. The Tet Offensive is right around the corner, meaning that if Duggan doesn't leave the country, and soon, there's a good chance he'll never leave it at all. Now, it's from there we end up transitioning on over to the actual titular Terminator of the piece. He's another white bread dude with a jaw like an anvil, who just so happens to end up teleporting from the future right behind enemy lines in Viet Cong territory. Naturally, they attack this guy assuming he must be one of the G.I. Joes, but no, that's another franchise. And yes, I know full well historically that is what the Viet Cong called the Americans. Naturally, the Terminator being an unstoppable killing machine from the future, he's able to make short work of the Viet Cong forces. What's really interesting about this too is that while the Terminator is always shown to be a one-man army, we rarely ever actually see them come up upon actual real military forces. And yeah, he shrugs off a ton of AK-47 fire, defeats a bunch of them using only a hand axe, and even flips one of their tanks just for good measure. Man, you know, say what you want about Skynet, but the man in the black pajamas, that was a worthy adversary. Now back over in Saigon, things start getting really real for Duggan and the American forces. The city is being encircled by communist forces, and it looks like these last choppers out are going to be the only way for Duggan and the others to escape. Only here's the thing, he doesn't want to go not without his treasure, something that he hid for an occasion just like this. Now, we never actually learn in this issue what that treasure is. Obviously, they want us to assume that it must be gold or diamonds or maybe even heroin given the time period. Though I think it must be a person because Duggan ends up looking for his quote-unquote treasure in a residential area, one that interestingly enough has already been tossed by the time he gets there, which the Terminator couldn't have done that, implying that there must be way more going on in this story than meets the eye. A nice old guy who I can only assume is a Hmong tells Duggan that his treasure is already long gone and at a nearby French airfield, but if he moves quickly enough, he might be able to catch it before it leaves the country. Of course, Duggan will have to work against the clock because his friend can only keep one of the last helicopters grounded for so long, meaning that it's really do or die time, and it's at this moment right here some real grin serendipity ends up entering the story. You see, while on his way to the airfield, Duggan ends up running directly into the very Terminator who has come to kill him. Of course, we don't exactly know why Duggan is so important that it was worth sending a Terminator back in time to kill him, though interestingly enough, once Duggan actually realizes he's dealing with a robot and not a human, he's freaked out, but not like so freaked out, he even says, oh wow, do the VCs have robots now? Implying that he might very well have seen a lot in Vietnam already as the main story comes to an end, but we're not done because we also get treated to yet another backup story, one that just so happens to be a continuation of the previous one. If you'll recall, in that story, we had seen a Terminator come from the future to kill a local doctor by the name of Hassan, only to be stopped by another Terminator that came out of the sand. Well, in this issue, we learned that Terminator's origins. Apparently, it had actually come back in time 21 years ago, only to end up getting buried in a massive sandstorm and being forced to power down. What's really great about this backup story, too, is just how clever they tell the story. There's no dialogue, and all the information we glean as the reader is from actually checking out the Terminator's own diagnostics. We see Dr. Hassan's name mentioned by this Terminator in its files, but the information gets cut off before we as the reader learn if this thing was meant to terminate Hassan or rescue him. And so that was Terminator issue number 2, everybody, and I'm happy to say everything that worked in the debut issue continues to work here in the second, especially now as we begin to tell a longer form multi-part story. It's actually kind of amazing with time travel being baked into the Terminator concept from day one that we haven't actually seen more experimental period piece takes on the material. Like, yeah, if the Terminator can go anywhere in time, why shouldn't it go back to Vietnam? In fact, it's interesting to see its high-tech future weapons and how they stand up against the traditional weapons of the era. While also doing a bit of subtle commentary on war. Oh, you think this war between humans is truly terrible and one of the worst things ever to come out of history. Wait till you see the war between man and machine. I also appreciate, too, with Duggan not really being this completely perfect, squeaky clean protagonist. He's a guy who's got some dirt, who's done some bad things, but one who you're still invested enough to see survive. The backup story is really strong, too. I love how they're able to tell such an engrossing story in only 3 pages at a time, and I'll really be interested to see how the whole thing shakes out. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one another very positive 8 out of 10, and if you liked the first issue, I think you're going to like this one a whole lot, too. Hey there, everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way, everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.